Okay, great. So, um, I'm going to jump right into the presentation, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me and why and how I came to cover this particular topic. So this topic came from some kind of really organic inspiration. I was poking around on LinkedIn, like many of us probably do, and I came across this LinkedIn post by Lily Yu, and she um, she had this post about her career, the UX design career path. And you can see she had these really cool graphics about how to make decisions about where you're going and some different levels of how you maybe progress to the career path. And it just brought me to this question. Like she made this theory that, the UX design path, career path is about 10 years out. And what about 5 years from now, right? What about something not so next decade, but just near future? And so I put this little presentation together because I'm an enthusiast as well as a professional UX designer. And it's really important for me to find joy in my design career. And so I thought, well, you know what? Let me use my UX design skills to put together some strategies and a little bit of a playbook to help others who might be looking to future-proof their design career, find a little bit more joy, and also figure out how to survive in this really complicated market. So this talk is about how fast the shift has been. Um, and I'm going to give a little bit of a framework for how to understand what changes have been going on. Um, I'm gonna if you aren't up to speed with what's going on in the design career, I'm gonna give you some strategies for how to get out in front of it and kind of put together your own little plan for the next 5 years. Um, I'm gonna dig into some of the sentiment to and help you to inspire you to keep going if that's something that's a challenge for you. And at the end, there's going to be a little bit of a Q&A, and I'm going to share some really exclusive tools and tips to kind of keep the conversation going. So who are you talking? Who's the guy that's talking? Um, I am a Houston-based UX designer. I've been in the design career for about 20 years. And not only am I a professional designer, but I'm also a design enthusiast. I love side projects. I love writing about design on Medium. I love collecting links, everything related to design. So this particular topic is important to me because my design career is more than just a profession. It's a hobby. I'm very deeply invested in it, and I'm good at it. So it provides me purpose. So the idea of having to maybe give up my design career because AI is going to take over for me or UX design is dead, it's a really big deal, and that really inspired me to kind of want to put something together to help other people who might be struggling with those same kind of ideas, especially if you're on LinkedIn. It's all over the place. So, what has changed? I made some really keen observations. Of course, with UX design, we're all observers and researchers to kind of start out with. And so I made some really keen observations about what I've seen going on. Namely, the UX design career path has gotten a lot less strategic, and we're going in more this direction of bringing in more generalist powers. One example of that is recently Shopify has gotten rid of the UX designation of all of their designers. So if you work at Shopify, you're really just a designer, whether it's a UX designer, a CX designer. They basically are treating all of their designers the same. So that's one example of how they're kind of doing it. And we're all kind of getting pushed, or at least teased with some pressure from AI. So I wanted to kind of push this home. I did my own little measurements, my own little KPIs for how the change has looked over the last 2 years. And so this is what I've got, right? So 2 years ago, um, it looked like the career ladder has almost well, a little bit more than doubled, right? It's gone for in terms of progressing to your next career from one to the next, it takes you about 6 to 12 months. That's basically like the average job hunt, and you can see the number of postings and opportunities to change, into your next point of your career is down by 70%. Um, the contribution and the expectations, if you're a UX designer, what you're expected to contribute has gotten outrageous, right? So what that stat is showing is, if you look at the average job posting, how many of the skills are listed, how many average skills, numbers of skills are listed, and then how many of those skills that are listed are senior level. So if you're trying to break in or you're entry level, they're expecting for you to kind of come in with a lot of experience. That expectation of contribution it can be kind of overwhelming. Another big change, this pressure to connect and learn. Now, I love to learn. I love lifetime learning, but you can see the amount of time that I'm putting in has doubled, and the amount of effort is twice as much because there's so much to learn as far as AI goes. There's so much to learn as far as how to, strategically put together a job hunt and how to build my portfolio so it stands out. It's just a lot. And then, the one shining thing that I did here, I put together a little bit of sentiment analysis with the help of AI to understand what designers' relationship is with artificial intelligence, with the AI tools. And so you can see it back 2 years ago was negative, about -8 sentiment. And now that sentiment is positive by 38 points. What that is really saying is that the expectation that designers have for AI has shifted. I would tell you, I'm in the class, I'm not a huge lover of AI because, for obvious reasons, it's scary. And what it's doing to the workflows is changing everything up. But this is just to show you how fast this tool has changed from something that was like, oh, this is crappy, to, man, some of the stuff that it can give you full movies from a text prompt. You can do full interfaces, and so that's drastically changed. We've really seen how powerful designers have really seen how powerful AI is. So I'm now gonna move into some of the strategies that you can use to kind of adapt to some of these changes. And that's the big thing is if you don't adapt to AI, the current version of AI is not the one that's going to take you out. It's somebody else who does know how to use AI and they've worked it into their workflows. So, what can you do to kind of adapt your design role, or if you're not in a role, the role you're looking for? How can you put together a strategy to manage this? Well, so first of all, some big things that are going on with this design evolution that I'm talking about. I mentioned before about breaking into to a design career. Obviously, um, the way jobs are listed is very blurry and confusing. There's a lot of blurred expectations about roles. So UX designers and UI designers are expected to do a lot more coding. Managers and strategists are expected to do prototypes. Architects and front end developers, they're also expected to manage the roadmap. This has kind of blurred up our typical roles that we have in a typical UX team under the UX umbrella. And so it makes it very difficult if you're applying because you always feel like, well, I'm a good fit, but I don't meet that one qualification. So how do I break in? What do I do? I'm going to give you some tips for that. Um, Number two, production work. I mentioned before about the expectation level for contribution. Production work is pretty much is on the skids. AI is handling a lot of the end work that you would usually, not be able to not want to do or have somebody else kind of entry level do. So I'm going to talk about this approach to being the orchestrator, which is a really key part of what's going on. AI design careers are more geared towards this orchestrating role of kind of putting pieces together. And then lastly, I mentioned the overwhelming amount of learning. And so I'm going to talk to that in the next section. I do have some tips on how to kind of manage the overwhelming and amount of stuff you have to take in and the fatigue. All right. So if you're not familiar with um, the unicorn, and I'm just kind of speaking in general, the big myth is that, there's a designer out there that can do everything. Well, if you've never really looked it up, this is got this from a Wikipedia article. The real life version of the unicorn is the rhino. That's where it came from, and it kind of makes sense, right? It's a mythical it's a mythical creature, but it's got one horn. It's very strong, but it doesn't look like a unicorn, right? So that's where this picture is. Some of the things that you can kind of see, if you're not familiar with what I mean by a generalist, and the generalist is kind of a unicorn. Nielsen Norman really just had recently just released an article, and I think it's a really powerful article about the return of the generalist. Throughout my whole career, I've always been told you want to brand yourself with kind of one specific thing that you can do well, and then kind of flare some things off. Well, that's kind of changing up with the way the design role is kind of going. You can look for the design role to kind of shift in the next 5 years. If you're not familiar with the term agentic experience, agentic experience, it means an experience that's run by agents instead of an experience that's run by users. One example is I recently asked the AI agents, because ChatGPT now has this. I just said, hey, find me some college football tickets for me and my family in the month of October that with local colleges around Houston where I'm at. And it will go and do all the work for you. It'll look up all the football schedules for all the teams nearby. It'll go and look up the ticket prices. I asked it for the parking. It gave me three ranges. And that's an agentic experience. So the user experience that we're used to, where you're designing for interactions and attention, it's going to be different because your user might be going to an agent, and the agent might then be coming to your site or your application, pulling that data. That's why you really have to have more of a generalist type of a knowledge set. One of the core things about that is a people first knowledge set. So start to think about people first. Obviously, you're going to be maybe working with some kind of a conduit AI agent. And then, so last tip is, what does a generalist skill set look like? I mentioned before, kind of having a strategy, being able to do one thing well. Well, a generalist skill set looks more like a polygon. And a good analogy for that, if you don't understand, is a polygon is like a gemstone. If you think of like a ruby or a diamond, it has many, many sides, but the amount of value you're going to get is different depending on what angle and what context it's in. The light's going to reflect off it differently. So that's what a polygon skill set looks like, as opposed to traditionally we're told as designers to have a kite, a T-shaped like skill set. Well, a kite has this really long string; it can go really far, but it's always anchored down by that one really long string. And so that's what a kite type of a strategic skill set looks like. So moving more in towards that generalist skill set where you can kind of bring in things that you like, talents that you have, and patterns is really key. All right, so here's some of the strategies to move your not only your portfolio, but the way you present yourself and the type of role you take inside of the design team to more of that generalist skill set area. Number one, think more about design niches versus design craft. Now, I recently talked to, I did a lot of interviews with this, but I've talked to a few different people. And of course, as designers, we're all trying to keep up with Figma. We're all trying to keep up with prompting skills. We all know softwares and tools and drawing and stuff like that. Those are crafts. And what we usually have to do is we have to pass that over as documentation to someone else. And so that's what an output is, right? You did a wireframe, you did a prototype, or you did some sort of usability test, and you just did the test and got the data. And then you have to hand that over to somebody, or you have to build that into a product that you can hand over to your stakeholder or to your customer so they can understand it. The generalist type of a skill set, which would be the design niche, would be thinking about the outcome. So instead of thinking about the prototype, you actually think about the accessibility, which is the outcome that you want. And so you really more focus on, I'm an accessibility expert, and that's what you might put in your portfolio or in your resume, versus saying I'm a UX designer and I can make prototypes. So kind of really branding yourself more towards the design niches, which are like practice areas inside of design instead of thinking like skill sets. You think about what practice area or what specialization you can kind of reach out to and brand yourself as versus thinking about being that craft person that really the design team is going to care more about than your stakeholder. So number two, and this one's going to be, you might have heard this one before. So try to spot significant problems. And one way to do that, of course, is follow the pain, right? If you follow the pain that you're trying to solve, and then you think of how you might impact that pain, your next step is what your fix is. Make that fix effortless and feasible. And that's one way, if you think about that, some really common pains are that your team is going to have is, do we have a viable problem? Well, they just need to understand if they have a problem, is it a real problem that real people have? And how much does that really hurt business, or how much is that going to impact us if we don't fix it? That's one way of thinking about a role that you can take on a team. Another one might be optimization. Are we stable? Right? That's the question, is the pain. Are we stable? Well, how can we increase ROI while also maintaining efficiency? So thinking about your role in terms of pains and problems that you can solve for the team versus thinking about, I'm the UX designer and again, I provide prototypes, or I'm the UX designer and I write UX copy. That's a different way of branding yourself. You can kind of think about your career in terms of designing for different company types. So here I've put together some really mock-up logos for four different company types. There's a startup company, there's a scale-up company, an enterprise company, and an agency. And so the way you might go about branding yourself or looking at your career strategy for one of these different company types, of course, a startup company has between 0 and maybe 50 employees. And their biggest challenge is structure. It's a lot of chaotic pivots, and you work directly with the founder. So you might take your role and say, you know what, I'm going to be the Swiss Army knife. I'm going to come in and I'm going to provide multiple different skill areas or multiple different areas. So you might do, might not be the greatest, but maybe you do some animation or some interaction design, and you do some research, and you can kind of do more than one thing kind of well. A scale up type of a company is at the next level, right? It's between 50 and maybe 1,000. So it's a broad range. But their biggest challenge is rapid growth, right? They've gotten off out of the viability startup phase, and now they've got growth and change. So every month they've got this huge list of releases, or they've got half implemented design systems, and now they've got six different applications that they've got to put them across. So your role there might be to push for systemization. So now you can kind of come in and say,
My
how
mama
can we
saw
take,
that. I dropped a Drake out as from my crib. My mama saw me blowing a Drake.
okay.
She said that nigga
Um,
like a gang.
all right, Jeffrey, thank you. Um, Enterprise company. An enterprise company has more than 1,000 employees. That's kind of a broad range. And so the challenge that an enterprise company might have is heavy process and bureaucracy, a lot of different systems. So the difference between that and the last one, they've got half implemented designs systems over at the scale up company, where this one has seven design systems that apply to one application in the enterprise company. So instead of maybe worrying about systemization, which they pretty much got down
Don't
pat,
fucking
you might
bother
be
me.
you might be worried
Man,
about.
shut your bitch. Somebody asked you.
Yeah, we might need to kick Jeffrey out. Okay. um, you might be take on the role of the bridge and being able to unify and bridge all the different systems into one thing that kind of helps. And that's going to take care of some of the silos. And so those are some different strategies that you might use in terms of, again, thinking about your role, thinking about what you do, thinking about how you can impact the team. Lastly is workplace needs, and this really goes to the human element, right? as a generalist, you really want to think people first. In some ways, you might do that is think about the team dynamic that you can help foster at the on the design team. Again, instead of just thinking about I'm going to come in and I'm going to do, copywriting, maybe you think you can come in and I'm going to be a teacher role. I'm going to have the teacher role on the team. I'm going to find all the new hires or all the cross-functional people who are interested in design, maybe all the people from IT who are interested in design. And I'm going to be the one that helps them to understand what design does. I'm going to be one that makes our design system really easy for them to adopt. And I'm going to teach them about, basic design elements. Another role you might take on is the scout. So maybe you're at a company where nobody's really talking about users, and this is the person that kind of does some of the research. The big thing that I think that the scouts can kind of do is be future thinking. So even though you're in a certain technology, maybe we're in Figma, keep an eye out and find the next Figma, which is, one of the early candidates for that is this software called Pinpot. But keep an eye out for what the new players are, and bring those into the team. Another thing that Scout can do is kind of curate what is good. So we know that AI is really great at automating workflows and doing things and making things quicker and easier. But what about what's actually good, what actually works? Well, nobody else usually thinks about that other than the design team. We kind of get requirements and move on that. So being that person that kind of curates what's good, that's what the scout does. All right. So I mentioned at the top that I was also going to talk about how to survive in this current market. And so it's not enough to just survive, but you also want to thrive. So I just kind of made that into this new word, thrival. How can we manage thrival inside of the new design roles? Well, number one, we need to talk about what's your why. My why is finding joy in the design role. As bad as it gets, most people want to be happy, but even when you're unhappy, you can always have fun. So finding some way to relax and find something that you're passionate about and mixing that in, that's a big piece. But finding your why is one of the big things. So what I want to do is I want to open this up and to ask this question. If you can just add into the chat, what is your why? What do you still enjoy about your design career? And I'm going to give you about 45 seconds. I'd love for you to just kind of think and add some comments to the chat. Towards the end of my presentation, we're going to have open up for questions. So I'd love to kind of expand on this. Okay. I didn't mean to switch that quickly, but okay. But yeah, so that's it. I'm excited to hear what other people enjoy about their design career. But what I've also done is I went and spoke to at least five veterans in my network, and I talked to them about number one, the big key is you can't enjoy a design career unless you're working. So how do we keep you working? I just came out of a 16-month unemployment lull. And the main thing that I missed was being able to get up and actually, do all of the design activities, get on teams meetings and, you know, get going through feedback critiques. What can you put in your bag now or start to develop in your bag to help you to be able to maintain and sustain a design career? Um, so these are some of the things that I heard back from my panel. Number one, start to find work that evokes emotion. And I say this, but I always give advice. Figure out what you like to do and start to design those and that into your products. If you like plants, put yourself a side project in your portfolio about plants. Um, if you like, I don't know, if you like video games, I read books about video games and I then take my knowledge and I apply that, and that's the way I start to practice. I would encourage you to do what feels great first, especially when you're presenting yourself, because you're going to talk about that with passion. Deliver human focused outcomes. Things like obviously accessibility is great, but what about curiosity? How could you design something that helps people to be curious or maybe empathy? Obviously, we all say we love empathy. A funny one for me is humor, right? How can you really impress humor into your design outcomes so that you can, whether you want to measure that or whether you just want to do something that you think is funny and help other people to understand why you think that's funny. Those are some really ways of kind of keeping your spark there. Um, I'm not going to go through all of these because I know we have. How am I doing on time?
Well, we can go on until maybe 5 more minutes. That way,
Okay,
everybody can ask some questions. Everybody,
sure.
if you have questions, go ahead, get starting, to type into the chat. That way, Shariva can be the moderator and she will do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I only
Continue,
have
Rodney.
I only have four more slides, but
Oh,
this conversation is a really deep and rich one.
okay.
So I won't go too far on these tips, but I do want to share the last four or five slides, and then I'm going to talk about how we can continue this conversation further. That's one of the things that I have here.
Perfect. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm not going to go too much into the veterans, but I did get some tips for veterans. I know a lot of us myself, we struggle with how do we maintain and stay valuable? How do we not lose hope that our design career that we've done for 20 years is not going to it's not going to be gone. So I'm not going to go too far into those. I would love to share these, and what I'll probably do is put this share this in LinkedIn in a deck or write the Medium article. But I want to share the biggest superpower that I think every designer needs to invest in, and that's resilience. At this point, we our confidence is shaken. I feel like our strategies are shaken. I don't know how many times I've talked to people and they've said, "I don't know what to do next." Um, I encourage everybody to keep hope alive and stay in design. I will tell you this, people there's this rumor that UX is dead, and I had a very wise mentor of mine tell me this. UX design won Web 2.0. And the way you can determine that is if you look at what it was like before YouTube, nobody knew what a good video player looks like. Everybody knows what a good video player looks like. The conventions of how you put together video and how you're supposed to play things, you know what the icons look like. And that's because of Web 2.0. That's because of UX design. You know what a bad video player looks like now, but you didn't know when you were looking at it I'm gonna date myself, on AOL or some of the early players. It would just be a big small triangle in the corner, or like, Windows Media Player. And now everybody knows what those patterns, those highly complex patterns looks like. So just a little bit of encouragement that they don't always tell about the UX wins, but UX has won a lot, and design is a really big part. So if you're still into design and you're still into the fight, there were two whole sections. There's a whole director's cut that I did not get to cram into this presentation. I will be posting again on LinkedIn some more extended versions, specifically talking about how you can integrate more modern practice for networking. And then how do you sell yourself as a human designer? Um, you're designing against, it seems like competing against AI. So how do you sell I'm a human designer, I'm not an AI designer. How do you do that? I actually am breaking down some strategies. I actually have an article coming out, and it's coming out very soon. And so, if you would like for me to let you know when I post this article in Medium, I'd love to get your email address, and I will make sure that tag you or send you an email. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Um, Another thing I have going on here, and again, part of my mission, my biggest part of my mission, other than the strategies, is enjoy your career. So I have this networking toolkit that I'd love to share. I've put together 9 different personas. A lot of people, when they start with networking, the big thing is who do I talk to and what do I say? So I also have put together this curated notion of different things that you can share that are in the UX design community. So it makes it really easy for you to get started in sharing things other than doom and gloom stories on LinkedIn. Um, Lastly, I've got a couple more events coming up. I've got a webinar coming up where it's called the Invitation to Silliness. I've done some research that silly is a really easy type of humor to bring to work, and it's the least threatening type of humor to actually start with. So I'm going to be helping some people to revitalize their humor in their work. And then finally, I have another talk coming up on the 4th. It's a free talk and it's called Are We Having Fun Yet? And the whole point of this talk is, again, I know a lot of us, and I'm one that I've considered moving and pivoting to a different career path. And I really want to help people to understand how design can still be fun in the next 5 years and 10 years on. So this one's going to more of a workshop format than it is just a talk. So that's what I've got. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'd love to break open the questions and ooh, I see there's 13 questions in the chat. I'd love to kind of see what other people have put in the chat. Let me see what we've got here.
So we have one question right at the top. Um,
Okay.
it is asked by Robbie Morse. So he says, I'm sorry. Robbie says, like, I have been in higher ed for the past 20 years. I do have PhD in HCI, so I'm wondering if you have any advice for breaking in to a corporate setting.
To a corporate setting. Okay. Um, so here's my big thing. I would say. If you're coming from an education background, is there a specific so and I'm gonna here's the piece of advice, and I actually just gave this advice yesterday to one of the people who's on the call. Consider what you already have. If you have this higher ed background, you can take that corporate types of companies need a lot of training. They do
Yeah.
need education. I would tell you the big thing I would tell you is try to figure out a way to transfer your skills into the next job and don't necessarily just start from scratch. Don't be intimidated by all of the programs and stuff. Bring what you have. And if you've been studying anything about HCI and UX, the human part, the human curiosity, the way you approach your design projects, that's the big thing. And start to use those transferable skills and put them together. And that's the advice that I'd give you.
Thank you.
Let's see.
All right. Yeah, we can open this chat. Yeah,
Yes.
questions. Yeah. Um, I have one question.
Yeah.
I work in a setting where UX has been introduced since maybe past 2 years to this team, and we are on a path of establishing ourselves as a UX team. So sharing our value as a UX designer is still a little bit of a struggle, but I wouldn't say it's not being seen. However, in such kind of a team setting where you mentioned like startup, scale up enterprises and agencies, so what would be the right time to introduce the new fundamentals that we have with AI to such kind of a team? Do you think these teams are ready for it yet, or they have to establish a certain level of UX maturity first to even adopt um, even higher concepts? Yeah.
Yeah, so you do want to be sensitive about the situation.
Mhm.
And when you're presenting the ideas, like I will say stuff like you know, pitching stuff about AI and the company maybe just is about to do layoffs. you kind of want to kind of read the room a little bit before you pitch. But just in general, I would say start with small stuff. Like I think the easiest way if you're trying to introduce some of the value that you can bring is bring stuff that inspires you. At my company, we've been told that our UX team is a team of four, and they're not going to hire any more UX designers, and we're already allocated to the max. I think each one of us has four projects. And we go from 0 to 1 on those four projects. So it's a lot of work. Um, and we've been told to start learning AI, start getting very used to using Figma Make. Our workflows are going to change because we're not hiring any more people and we need to be able to present our work a lot faster. So
Mhm.
what I started to do, since I love link finding and I love finding out stuff in AI, I just started putting in links in our team chat for, um, prompt templates.
Hmm.
I'll look up and I'll find different AI tools, and I'll give my best review of what's good about it and how it might fit with our team. So it's more of a curated. I'm not just pasting in anything, but I actually try it out and say, oh, this one's good, but this one has kind of lacks. One of the ones I tried is called Quo, and it kind of lacks customization. It gives you really generic uh, user problems. It'll write personas, but if you do two or three projects, you'll start to see some of the same problems show up for each of the personas, and they're very vastly different products. So I just kind of give that so they know what to look for when they look for another one. They kind of have an idea or a language, a way to kind of judge it. So little stuff like that, and that's just it within the design team. When you start to
Mhm.
bring out ideas and kind of be future thinking towards your stakeholders, you can do a lot more stuff. Like a lot of stakeholders don't know anything about the double diamond approach. So why do we need to
Mhm.
do research? Just
Mhm.
bringing in little articles that really make it clear as to how your design could be really improved by just a little bit of research, just a 5-person usability test or a
Mhm.
book about research. That kind of stuff helps to kind of to put your foot in the get their foot in the water to just understand that design is a little bit more. It's a lot more than functional and aesthetics. It's a real thought process.
Yeah. Thank you. Um, I don't see any further questions in the chat though, so I would just yeah, ask like you may ask the question right here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So looks like Marcella is also saying something about what's happening in a lot of companies who have said this to their design teams is way less productive and actually which is a hindrance, and it's why there's more design jobs being listed lately. Being AI prompting, learn AI prompting. It's one of the most important skills to have. The other thing is that I have, because I'm constantly in touch with the students, the students who are getting ready to graduate, who are in the market looking for a job. I think this is another thing that would be awesome where, we as the chapters from different locations and areas, can help this upcoming generation of UXers is if there is an opening, if you know something that's coming up, if you want to share the details, probably we can send them across if it's a internal hiring or, if they're just thinking about it, just sending it out to the chapters, I think would be very helpful to just get these kids, an opening somewhere, a connection to actually reach out to these positions. Because it's what I've heard is they get the first call, but then they don't either move on to the next level or the next
Hmm.
call. That is very slow these days. So it's very frustrating. It's very difficult for the people to actually keep up their morale and, still, like you have said, do not lose
Yeah.
that passion, just persevere, that is what the thing is. But if you're in the moment, they get tested with, for the perseverance and the morale. So So if there is something that you guys see, please feel free to share them, across the networks this way, that way, this is going to be something else that we can share to the members who are part of the chapters. That way they can, probably this is also the incentive for them to join the chapters, right? Right, Marcella?
I don't know about that, but I think I don't know that the young people are valuing community groups
Yes,
like
that's
meetups.
That is
and
true.
networking
Yeah.
is tough
Yeah,
Networking is tough. I
well,
for the
know.
younger kids.
I think
Yeah.
they don't get that, but then they get out there and they start to try and look for a job, and then they understand what reality is, because when you're at school, networking is very easy. Um,
Yes.
Mhm.
the one thing that I agree with you about always passing on, job recs and recommendations. But the other thing about the youngsters is in the mentoring that I do, I make it really clear that this is not a one-time thing, looking for their first job. This is going to be a lifelong thing, because design, no matter, we call UX design, but Don Norman did that to us in 1997. Um, we're usability professionals,
You're
and
right.
the best ones I've ever worked with don't know any kind of visual design. Um, but the main thing to learn is anyone in this kind of profession, in graphic design, user research, whatever it happens to be, part of your whole career is going to be hunting for work, no matter if you are a full-time employee or not, because there is rarely anyone that I've ever met in my life who's been at a company for more than 5 years who works in this profession in any capacity.
Right.
Well, when I was at Blizzard, one of my peers had been at the company for 18 years, and that blew my mind. Um, but it's the thing that I run a group on Friday afternoon, or Friday Pacific time at noon to 2. And I have it's a group. We started out as the Never Search Alone group, which, if anyone's familiar with it or not familiar with it, to look it up. It's free, it's real, it's legit. It's free workbook, free book to read, a community, a Slack group. It's really good. It's a little less organized this year now than it has been, but it's really good. And we've kind of gone on from there, and now we're at the point where we're just meeting on Fridays and discussing case studies, what's happening for those working. People in this group are from all over the world. And the most thing that I run the group, and the most thing I try to teach everyone is skills for looking for work.
Awesome.
And the way we hunt, and how to, not just make LinkedIn your Bible, what is the reality of LinkedIn? Because if you see 10 jobs listed, 5 are going to be crap, meaning they're already filled, they're being posted by bots, and there are a lot of bots on LinkedIn right now. A lot of them. I'm creating a post I'm gonna post on
Marcella,
LinkedIn about that.
I'm going to pause you quickly for a quick second. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt,
Oh, no,
but
it's okay.
our chapters, this meeting, it might end soon.
Oh, sure.
So before it abruptly ends on us, I just wanted to, thank Rodney and all of you guys for being here. And Rodney, thank you so much for walking us through
I
this. This
appreciate it.
is much needed for us, and thank you for helping us through this. And everybody, please feel free to, go through the links that Rodney sent, and feel free to connect with Marcella. And this is going to be helpful, and hopefully, I look forward to seeing you all in a different platform. When Rodney, launches his next Medium post, or
Yes.
his next talk. I look forward to it. Keep us posted, Rodney. Okay, we would love to share
Yep.
your updates on our chapter. And Marcella, if you want to share the information about your group, please go ahead and send that to me on an email, and we can share it with our group.
It's a private group, and
Sounds
but
good.
if anybody wants to connect, please connect locally and reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever. But I just wanted to say, Rodney, I came here for joy because I had kind of a difficult day, and thank you, because I definitely am leaving with joy.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you.
that's I'm glad it was reflective on you. I mean, I know
Absolutely.
I know how it is, especially, somebody who's doing mentoring like yourself. you've got to kind of have hope and strength, and sometimes it gets tiring, you know. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of connect and that was able to reflect on you.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk more about doing a talk for us. So
Absolutely.
thank you guys for
Yes.
hosting. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. And, stay tuned for our, the upcoming events. And if you haven't liked us, send your follow-up thing. Oh, perfect. On the LinkedIn. That's your screen, Rodney. Yeah, like us
I'm still.
or follow
I'm
us
still
on.
sharing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Any other ways to-
I
Yeah.
subscribed to you on Eventbrite, so that was really awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Go ahead. We look forward to seeing more of you. Thank you so much. Bye. Have a great
Bye.
day. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Rodney.
everybody.
Thank you.